On the Tennessee frontier in the early 1800s, the Bell family thought they had found their home, a quiet farm, fertile land, and the promise of a new life. But something else had already claimed the land, something unseen. It began as whispers in the night, then knocks on the walls, then a voice that laughed, that mocked, that threatened death. This is no ordinary ghost story. This is the legend of the Bell Witch, the most famous haunting in American history. In fact, historians and paranormal enthusiasts still debate whether the Bell Witch is a folktale exaggerated over time, or the closest thing to America's first documented case of poltergeist activity. What makes it terrifying is not just the events themselves, but how many ordinary people, neighbors, ministers, and even politicians, claim to have experienced a witch firsthand. The year was 1804 when John Bell, a farmer from North Carolina, moved his wife Lucy and their children to the small community of Red River, Tennessee. Today, the town is called Adams, but back then, it was little more than farmland and scattered cabins. Life was hard. Families raised their own crops, hunted for food, and relied on neighbors for survival. For John Bell, the move was a chance at prosperity. He purchased 328 acres of land, built a home, and set about raising his family in peace. By all accounts, the Bells were respected. John was known as a successful farmer. Lucy, his wife, was admired for her kindness and strong Christian faith. The children helped with chores and attended church. But on the edge of this quiet frontier life, stories already existed. Tales of witches, curses, and spirits. On lonely farms, in dark woods, and in cabins lit only by firelight, such beliefs felt very real. It was into this world that the Bell family's nightmare began. Tennessee in the early 19th century was still a rugged frontier. Nights were long and dark, lit only by lanterns. Coyotes howled in the distance, and neighbors could be miles away. Superstitions thrived in such an environment. Every creak of wood, every unexplained sound could take on supernatural meaning. The Bells were God-fearing people, but even they could not ignore the whispers that their new land might be cursed. In 1817, John Bell was walking through his cornfield when he noticed a strange creature in the distance. It looked like a dog, but larger. Its body stretched long and lean, its head oddly shaped. When he raised his gun and fired, the creature vanished without a trace. That night, the Bell family began hearing sounds they could not explain, faint tapping on the walls, scratching like claws dragging across the wood, chains rattling across the floor. At first, John assumed it was animals, rats, stray dogs. But night after night, the sounds grew louder. They moved from outside the cabin to inside. The children whispered that something tugged at their blankets as they slept. Pillows were tossed to the floor. Betsy Bell, the youngest daughter, felt a hand slap her cheek in the dark. And then came the voice. At first, it was a whisper, too faint to understand. Then words began to form, words spoken clearly in a woman's voice. Imagine being in that small wooden cabin with only the faint glow of the fireplace, the night outside pressing in, the trees groaning in the wind. Suddenly, a knock at the door. Then another knock, but on the inside wall of the house, footsteps on the roof, a cold draft sweeping through a room with no open windows. The Bells prayed harder, but prayer only seemed to make the disturbances stronger. The spirit soon introduced itself. It called itself Kate. Some believed it was Kate Batts, a neighbor of the Bells who had once accused John of cheating her in a land deal. In those days, accusations of witchcraft lingered. People whispered that Kate Batts had cursed the Bell family. But whether this was truly her spirit, or simply a name the entity chose, no one could say. What they could say was this: the Bell Witch was no ordinary haunting. The spirit spoke in full conversations. It sang hymns, it quoted Bible verses, it repeated sermons preached at the local church, word for word. Neighbors came from miles around to hear it. Some swore they heard the voice with their own ears, speaking out of thin air. At times the witch was playful. It recited poetry. It debated scripture. It shared gossip from across town, things it should not have been able to know. But other times, it was cruel. Lucy Bell, the mother, was spared. The witch admired her and spoke of her goodness. But John Bell, the father, was cursed. The spirit called him White Old Jack Bell and promised one day to kill him. Betsy, the daughter, suffered the worst. She was pinched, slapped, and scratched by invisible hands. Her hair was pulled. She was tormented day and night. The Bell Witch made one thing clear. She did not want Betsy to marry her fiancé, Joshua Gardner. Whenever the young couple walked together, the witch screamed, cursed, and drove Joshua away. Witnesses later said the voice of the Bell Witch could change tone and pitch, as though it were more than one spirit. Sometimes it was deep and guttural, other times high-pitched and mocking. Some nights the witch would sing in harmony with herself, producing two voices at once. For a farming community that believed in good and evil, angels and demons, this was beyond terrifying. It was proof that they were dealing with something inhuman. News of the Bell Witch spread far beyond Red River. Curious visitors came to witness the haunting. Ministers, neighbors, even strangers all wanted to hear the voice for themselves. And many left convinced it was real. One of the most famous encounters involved General Andrew Jackson, who would later become the 7th President of the United States. Jackson, hearing of the witch, brought a group of men to the Bell farm. As their horses approached the property, they froze. No matter how hard they tried, the animals would not move forward. Then, a voice rang out, "I'll let them come in. I'll deal with them tonight." That evening, as Jackson's men settled in, one of them mocked the witch. He boasted that he wasn't afraid. Moments later, he screamed as invisible blows struck him. He was lifted, thrown, and beaten by an unseen force. Jackson, astonished, is said to have cried, Well, by the eternal boys, this is worse than fighting the British." By morning, he and his men had left. Whether exaggerated or not, the story spread like wildfire, cementing the Bell Witch's reputation as more than just a local haunting. But Jackson wasn't the only outsider to experience her wrath. Preachers who came to bless the house often left humiliated, their prayers mocked line for line by the witch. Farmers who doubted the tales swore they felt invisible hands shove them to the ground. Travelers claimed their wagons were shaken violently as they passed near the Bell property, as though unseen forces pushed against the wheels. Some reports even claimed that the witch could imitate the voices of the living. A neighbor would be heard calling from outside the door, only for the bells to open it and find no one there. On other nights, the witch would laugh in the exact tone of Betsy's own voice, taunting her parents. This mimicry blurred the line between human trickery and true supernatural power. The Bell Witch grew bolder. She mocked prayers, disrupted church services, and cursed those who doubted her. She claimed she could be in two places at once, speaking to families across the region. And always she returned to her central mission, tormenting John Bell. John's health began to fail. His tongue swelled, his face twitched. He could barely walk or speak. The witch taunted him constantly, calling him weak, promising that his end was near. In December of 1820, John Bell was bedridden. His condition worsened day by day. On the morning of December 20th, his son found a small vial of dark liquid in the house. No one recognized it. When the family questioned, the witch, her mocking voice, answered, "It's medicine. I gave old Jack Bell a dose. He'll never get up again." That same day, John Bell died. At his funeral, held at the family farm, hundreds of mourners gathered. As the preacher spoke, laughter echoed through the crowd. A voice sang loudly, mocking hymns and chanting drinking songs. The Bell Witch had claimed victory. After John Bell's death, the spirit quieted, but did not vanish. She promised to return in 7 years, and in 1828 she did, appearing briefly to John Bell Jr. before departing again. Some say she predicted events far into the future. Others claim she never truly left. Today, the legend of the Bell Witch lives on. The Bell Witch Cave, located near the old farm, is a tourist site where visitors report strange experiences, unexplained voices, ghostly touches, sudden cold winds. The Bell Witch story has been told for over 2 centuries. Skeptics argue it was nothing more than hysteria, trickery, or exaggeration, an ordinary family caught in gossip and fear. Believers insist the events were real, that too many witnesses heard the voice, saw the torment, and felt the presence for it to be dismissed. But perhaps the truth lies not in proof, but in belief. Stories survive not because they are explained, but because they cannot be explained. So was the Bell Witch a spirit, a curse, a demon, or simply the imagination of a frightened community? One thing is certain, the legend has never died. And even today, in the quiet fields of Adams, Tennessee, some still claim to hear whispers in the dark. If you ever visit, listen closely. You may hear a voice calling your name, reminding you that the Bell Witch still lingers. Next time we'll leave Tennessee and travel to West Virginia, where a winged creature with glowing red eyes became an omen of disaster, the Mothman.